All right, so we have our beautiful Hibiscus Citrine Bracelet. So this is, let me just tell you a little bit about the materials and some of the tools that we'll use for this bracelet. So we have the citrine microfaceted rice. This is, I believe, I want to say 5 millimeters in width. It looks like 4 or 5 millimeters in length. And then we have the stones that come with it in between. They're little glass beads. We have a couple of these silver discs. They're plated silver. And then we have the check glass beads that are the flower and this oval. Okay. So citrine definitely has a really nice sparkle, especially when you take it out into the sunlight. And this has a really cool way of balancing out the gold and the silver. So it's kind of a nice bracelet for spring and for summer, especially. Okay. So we're going to start off by figuring out how we're going to get these beads onto our wire. So I'm going to show you guys the wire and some of the tools. Okay, so this is a piece of stainless steel nylon coated wire, and we're going to get about, I'd say about 10 inches of it. Okay, and we have, this is another one that I started in the class. We have a couple of the supplies that we'll need. We'll need 2 of these crimp beads. Actually, we'll need 4 for the total bracelet. And we're going to need a couple of these extra beads. You can just use, if you have any extra gold beads from the chain, you can use those. Actually, I think I will use some of these to start us off. And we're going to need some sort of cutting tools, wire cutting tools. Okay. You're going to need, you can use pliers, but just keep in mind that sometimes the cutter on the pliers is a little bit flat or a little bit dull. This plier can be used instead of a crimping tool. A crimping tool looks like this. And it has like a round part to crimp the round beads. Okay. But if you don't have a specific crimping tool, you can just use the tip of the wire or any other kind of flat plier. Okay. And that's it. For this one, we won't need the wire loop tool. All right, so let's get started here. We have the whole setup that we need right here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the bar on the toggle. I'm going to zoom in a little so you guys can see. Oh, focus. Focus, focus. Okay, maybe zoom out. All right, so with our wire cut to the right length, we're going to slide it through the crimp bead. Okay. Wire out of the way. And slide it through the crimp bead right here. Okay. And then we're going to slide it through this toggle like this. Okay. And we're just going to bring it back around and through the crimp bead one more time. So it's looped back on there. Okay. And you can just scooch this up a little. And I'm going to pull the long end of the wire, and it's going to make this loop at the top where the toggle bar is a little shorter. Okay. So I want to leave maybe about 1 inch extra of the tail just to make sure it doesn't come off of there. And this toggle should be on here, not tight, like just give it enough like room for it to wiggle around. Okay. And then just gently pull on it to tighten it up a little more if you need. Okay. But it should not be pulled all the way so it's super tight, or else it's going to just be hard to maneuver and get it onto your wrist. Okay, once that is in the right spot, then you're going to take your pliers or your crimping tool, and you are going to smush it gently. Okay. And make sure you smush it hard enough to actually get that on there, okay? Gently, but like really firm, I guess I should say. Maybe not gently. Smush it really hard. Okay. So then we have the first part on. I'm going to leave the little tail on and put the first couple beads on there. Okay. Now this toggle, when you put it on, okay, and if I can do this one hand, you're going to have to slide it through the ring. And so you want the bar and all the beads on here to be able to fit. Okay. So one of the ways that we can make that easier whenever you're adding a toggle is to just add a couple little extra smaller or thinner beads than the main beads that you'll have, because you don't want the big beads to get stuck. Okay. So I'm going to add a couple of these little tiny gold ones. These ones came with the citrine, and so I'm just getting a couple of the extras. Let's add 3 on there. Okay. And that's just going to give it some space for us to move the toggle around and slide it through the loop. And I'm putting that little extra tail through those 3 beads. Okay. Once I have that ready to go, I'm going to look at my cheat sheet here. So on this sheet, it has, the materials, the little diagram showing you how to slide that on there. And so we're just going to follow the pattern for this side. Okay. So we're going to start off with our 4 seed beads over here. Well, I put 3, and then we can start adding the citrine beads. Okay. So this wire is kind of firm enough that you don't really need to use a needle tool. It's kind of acts as the needle tool. So I'm going to slide this through, and I don't want the extra bead there. I can either slide it through with the cord in there, which is kind of like, if you can get the wire in there, okay? Or if your wire is, or your string is too fat or too wide, I like to kind of pull off 2 at a time. So I'm putting it through the citrine and putting it through that glass bead at the same time, okay? You can also just pull them all off and just do it on your own way, okay? Just a little shortcut. So I'm making sure that wire is tucked in all the way. I have my first citrine bead and then the little spacer that comes with it, okay? So I'm adding 2 to that side. Okay. And then it's going to be the blue one after that. That's 2. The blue check glass oval. And then it has a silver disc. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing the other side. My bad. This one has 4. I'm going to keep adding these. That's 4. And then this side has the silver disc after the 4th one. This is a plated silver. You can also use a full metal bead. Regular metal bead is fine. And then we have, looks like 6 of these. Able to pinch all of those together. So that's 3 with the spacer bead. So I'm pinching all 3. Okay. Just so you guys can see how I'm doing it quickly. And sliding it through all of them. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the silver disc. next one has a set of 5. That's 3. 3, 4, 5. Okay, then another disc. So basically this part is just, you're just sliding the beads through. Okay, the other side, you're going to do the same. You're just going to follow the pattern. And let's see. All right. 3, 2, 3. Okay, I need another set of 5. So that has 4 on the end of this one. So I'm going to close this end off. So before I close anything, this is where you would measure, okay? If you start on the other side, same thing. Just before you close up the first side that you do, make sure you're measuring it and consider that, you know, you're going to put your loop on the other side. So give it a little bit of space for that. You don't need those spacer beads for this side. And so the toggle is going to fall right here at the end. Okay. So for example, on this bracelet, when I put it on, it's going to fall like this. Okay. So just consider the spacing. You want to measure it around your wrist at this point. Careful not to drop all the beads. Okay. And then, get it set up the way that you want. So I'm just going to measure this one against my wrist. And I think I'm going to take off 1 bead. Okay, just going to double check this one. This is the length that I want on this one, so I think I'm going to take off 1 more bead here. Okay. So this one's just a reference for the size, the one I have on this side. There we go. So I'm lining these two up, making sure they're going to be the same. Actually, now that I did that, I think I do need that citrine. Pop it back on there. All right. So then the same thing that we did to start off, we're going to do the other side. So once we have our loop, Where's my loop? Okay. Same thing, I'm going to run this wire through this end. Okay. Make sure it's all lined up through the oval. This side, again, we don't need the extra beads like this side needed. And I'm going to bring it back around. Can you guys see that? Can it focus? I'm bringing it through the crimp bead again, just like how we started. And then this time I'm going to slide it into a couple of the beads. So into one or two of these little beads, citrine and the gold bead. Okay. And then I'm just pulling it all gently, tightening it, making sure that everything is looking good. On here, there's a little piece sticking out, so I'm going to tuck it back in. Get in there. That way I don't have to cut it off later. Okay. Checking that everything's lined up. Then I'm going to pull gently this end right here. Side so it doesn't. There we go. Pulling gently on this end just to bring that loop in a little, make it a little closer. Okay. And then I'm getting my crimper and crimping it there. Okay. So that same step, okay, you're going to be repeating on this side, right? So if I were to take the wire, and I actually don't have enough citrine beads, so I'm not going to do the whole thing on this side. You guys can just kind of imagine it here, but I will show you how to loop it all together. So to start off the other side, right, we would get your crimp bead. Where's my other crimp bead? Slide it through the wire. And gold or silver wire is fine for this. You really don't see it, so. This crimp bead is not cooperating here, so let me just take it off. All right, I'm not sure where the other crimp bead is, so I'm gonna just use this as a crimp bead. I went through a lot of the crimp beads in the class, so. So just imagine this is the smaller crimp bead. So we would slide it through. Okay, put it right up next to the other one. Slide it through the toggle again. Bring it back into the crimp bead. Okay. And then you would press the crimp bead together. Okay. So then all you have to do after that is just add your other set of your beads, right? Following the pattern. Okay, this end does have 3 smaller ones. Just to give it enough thinness up here because it needs that to go through the loop. And then it continues the pattern that's on the guide. And same thing, you would just attach it to the other side, following the same process. So in here, you would just slide it through the crimp bead, through the loop, and then back around, just how that one is, okay? So you have two sides of the bracelet. When you are done, this, okay? All right, that is pretty much it for this one. Fairly simple bracelet to make. And then it does show you the basics of tying the wire and crimping it. And optionally, I have one crimp bead cover on this. They do have these in silver or in gold. If you want to put a crimp bead cover on the very end, you can, but it is optional. I would just say make sure that you can still fit the toggle through the loop. See, you don't want it to get too thick in there, okay? So just make sure you check that before you add more crimp bead covers. All right, so maybe I would just have one side covered and not the other. All right, let me zoom out a little. Oops, so blurry. Okay, sometimes I can't see if it's so blurry. Okay, so that is it for the citrine hibiscus bracelet. Next month, we are going to have the necklace that goes with it. So it'll be the hibiscus flower in a pattern with the other flowers. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining, and I wish you much success on your bracelet. All right. Thanks. Bye.